Hey, what's going on, High Hill campers? My name is Karl, also pronounced
Karl
or
Karl.
Really, I've heard it both ways. I'm a pastor in the St. Louis area, and I'm super excited to spend some time with you this week to give you some Easter eggs, these key details about the amazing story of a man named Moses who encountered
the great I Am.
Well, that was cool, Daniel. That was cool.
I got your back.
You've probably heard the story of Moses before. Enslaved people, a baby in a river, an ancient empire, a pharaoh, the parting of the Red Sea, and a burning bush. Does that sound vaguely familiar? Even if you know the basics, there's still so much more to this incredible story. And if you seek to understand the victories and the struggles of Moses, I think God will show you something new about himself, about you, and about each person that he has brought together to camp for this special week. Before any of those details that I just mentioned actually take place, Moses writes about this radical shift in Israel's history. That's right. Moses is the author of the Old Testament books Genesis and Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. This collection of books is called the Pentateuch, meaning 5 books. In the book of Exodus, Moses records 300 years of Israel's history in just 3 verses saying this: "Now Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died, but the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful. They multiplied greatly, increased in numbers, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. And then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, came into power." That comes out of Exodus chapter 1, verses 6 through 8. The story of Moses actually comes on the heels of another great story, this amazing story about Joseph and his brothers. In these 3 verses, Israel goes from being welcomed immigrants into the Egyptian empire to the foreshadowing that they are outgrowing and overstaying their welcome. And there's a new Egyptian pharaoh that's not a fan of these foreigners in his land. And so as a result, the Egyptian king ruthlessly enslaves these Israelites. And this was the world that Moses was born into. The Hebrews were slaves for the next 400 years. And at the time of Moses' birth, a new pharaoh sent out an order of infanticide. That's the mass murder of newborn Hebrew boys. This program was Pharaoh's attempt to control the population of the Israelites. It was through an incredible series of events that Moses is rescued, and then he's adopted. He becomes Pharaoh's grandson by being adopted by his own daughter. And he goes from this poor Hebrew slave to a prince of Egypt. And then God also made a way for his birth mother, Jochebed, to remain a part of his life and secretly care for him and to be an influence in his life. Now you might imagine that Moses had some identity issues by the time he was a young man, living like royalty and at the same time witnessing his people suffer as slaves. Moses' internal struggle reaches its breaking point when he saw a Hebrew slave being brutally beaten by an Egyptian soldier, and then something just kind of snapped inside of him. And he goes over and he kills the soldier and he buries this guy in the sand. Whoa. Moses fears that the word will get out of what he just did to this Egyptian soldier. And from identity issues to murder, and now he becomes this desperate fugitive on the run. His escape from Egypt lands him about 200 miles from Egypt to Midian, which is modern-day Saudi Arabia. And after this long trek through the desert, he hangs out near this water well. Fact, in the Bible, the places that people go to get water seems to be the go-to place to meet women. I mean, you got Isaac and Rebecca, you got Jacob and Leah, you got Simba and Nala.
The water hole? What's so great about the water hole?
Okay, well, that's not in the Bible, but this is where Moses makes his move to win over a woman named Zipporah, who he marries, he starts a family with, and he lives in that region as a shepherd for many decades, hiding from his people, running from his past, and ignoring the purpose for which God has rescued him. Now, to be fair, we don't know how much Moses knew about the Lord at that time, of his people at this point. But you wonder if his mother Jochebed, she would sing songs, and maybe she even told him stories of his Hebrew heritage and the amazing displays of God's power and the love towards Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph, the patriarchs of the Jewish faith. While there were no written scriptures, the people passed along these stories, traditions, and the promises of God through storytelling, like many cultures still do today. Whatever Moses knew, nothing could prepare him for his first encounter with God. While Moses was taking care of his sheep near the clefts of a mountain, he sees a UFO. Okay, not that kind of UFO, more like an unidentified fiery object, okay? He sees a burning bush that's on fire, but that's not being consumed by the flames. At this point, he could A, run and get the Midian fire department, or B, walk towards this weird, strange, and potentially dangerous objects, which seems to be the thing that people do in every movie. Hey, this is dangerous. I wonder what it is. And they walk towards it.
And I mean that in the best possible way.
Moses chooses option B. And when he arrives, a voice begins to emanate from the bush.
Moses! Moses!
What a powerful moment for Moses as he has this encounter with God who called him by name. And even though the story looks like Moses is the main character, really it's God that's at the center of the story. God is the one who rescued Moses and guided his upbringing. God is the one who heard the cries of the Hebrew people. God is the one who got his attention with a burning bush. God is the one who was speaking to this murderous deserter hiding out in the desert. God could have turned his back on Moses, but he didn't. Instead, God called him out and welcomed Moses into his presence. We learn a lot about Moses before he encounters God. And it's not so that we learn about how good or bad Moses was. No, it's so that we can clearly see how gracious and loving and great God is. Moses tells God, with what has to be a trembling voice, "Here I am," to which God says, "Prepare yourself, I am."